Hi, this is a bit of a different type of video for me, and one that I've kind of been planning to do for years, basically since I started my channel. So you can tell from the title, this is going to be my discussion about my Crohn's disease and my experience with my Crohn's disease, and I haven't planned this video at all. I'm just going to talk to you about this. If you don't like hearing about poop, then this probably isn't the video for you. I'm not going to be talking about books in this video, which is why it's a little different. I was diagnosed in, 2016 now, but I first started experiencing symptoms in around 2015, I think. And when I first started experiencing symptoms, it was basically stomach upset after dinner in the evenings, and I don't know why, I just didn't ever think anything of it. I kind of just, I noticed that it was happening and it was like a bit annoying, but I didn't think about going to a doctor about it because I just thought I need to improve my diet or something, So I didn't do anything about it. And then probably in around the summer of 2016, I started to experience hemorrhoids, which are extremely painful, and I was treated by the doctor for those, but the doctor was like, you're very young to have hemorrhoids. I think I was I must have been like 25 at the time, I want to say. Yeah, around 25 at the time, and the doctor was like, you're quite young to be having hemorrhoids. Is there something going on? And I explained, I do have stomach upsets most evenings. That means I'm on the toilet quite a lot. And they were like, yeah, that's not really normal. We should probably investigate that. And I'd say I had my diagnosis within about 6 months, maybe less. And what that involved was, initially I had blood tests with my GP, my local doctor, and that came back showing some mild inflammation of the blood, mostly the white blood cells, and I hadn't had a cold or anything, which can cause that. So I was referred to the hospital, where I saw a consultant and I had more blood tests done, and then they wanted me to have a colonoscopy, which is where they put a camera up your butt and have a look inside at your intestines, which isn't very nice. You have to take laxatives for you're not allowed to eat for 24 hours before the procedure, and you have to take laxatives during that period so that everything gets flushed out. It's a really unpleasant experience. I've actually had 3 of them now, and it's not fun. And I had that, and I also had an MRI scan, and those 2 tests together showed that I had Crohn's disease. So some of you might be wondering, well, what is Crohn's disease? And that's a good question. So Crohn's disease is a type of inflammatory bowel disease, or IBD. And there are 2 types of IBD. So there's Crohn's disease and there is ulcerative colitis. Ulcerative colitis is kind of what it says on the tin. You end up with ulcers in your colon. Whereas with Crohn's disease, it can affect any part of your digestive system, so all the way from your mouth all the way down to your anus, and it involves inflammation of parts of your digestive system. Now, my inflammation has always been in my terminal ileum, which means that I have a fairly mild form of Crohn's disease. In terms of my symptoms, they are very, very mild compared to most people with Crohn's disease. So I count myself extremely lucky for that. And so I'm talking from my own experience, which is a mild case. So bear that in mind. But I thought that this was worth talking about anyway. So like I said, my inflammation is in my terminal ileum, which is like the very, very end of the small intestine, where it intersects with the large intestine, or the bowel, or the colon. All the same thing, just different names. And So that's where my Crohn's disease is. Now, Crohn's disease as well as ulcerative colitis are chronic conditions, which means that there's no cure for them right now. So I will always have this, but it can be managed, not by diet though. So there are certain foods that I have to avoid, like anything spicy or anything that's too fibrous, because they can exacerbate my symptoms. But unlike with IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, it's not, Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis are not controlled by food or by diet. You can't just cut something out of your diet and all of a sudden your Crohn's disease goes away. You always have it. There's no cure for it right now, and they're also not entirely sure what causes it, what causes a person to have Crohn's disease. There's thought that it might be a hereditary condition, and my mum does have kind of similar symptoms, but she doesn't have Crohn's disease, or at least she hasn't been diagnosed with Crohn's disease as of right now, although it has been investigated for her. So there's no one in my family that has it, but that doesn't mean that it's, you know, somebody hasn't had it and just didn't know about it, for example. Because my symptoms are so mild, maybe someone in my family has had it, but with even more mild symptoms than me. So they don't know what causes it and they can't get rid of it. So I will always have this. As I said, was diagnosed in 2016. I've had symptoms since 2015 and it's now 2021 and I still have probably slightly better symptoms than I did originally, but not particularly different, to be honest. So what symptoms do I have? Well, there are the lovely digestive symptoms, which can range all the way from constipation through to diarrhea, and sometimes both at the same time, which is super fun. That might not make a lot of sense. If you're squeamish, skip ahead a little bit because this bit's a bit gross, sorry. But when you are heavily constipated, you might have a plug of feces in your bowels, which the stuff behind it can't get past because it's blocking the way. And if that gets really bad, it can cause an obstruction, which will require surgery. Luckily that hasn't happened to me, but I know it does happen to a lot of people with Crohn's disease. But if it doesn't happen, then what happens is that the food that's behind that plug has to liquefy in order to get around it and get out of your body. Hence you can have constipation and diarrhea at the same time, and let me tell you, it is very unpleasant. I've experienced it a number of times and it's not fun. And alongside that, you have a lot of bloating a lot of the time, so, or I do at least. So I look about 3 months pregnant most of the time, and it's not because I am, it's because of the bloating, and there's not a lot I can do about it. It can be very uncomfortable, and even aside from the bloating you can experience pain, or I experience pain with my Crohn's disease. But again, I'm very, very fortunate because some people with Crohn's disease have a lot of bleeding, they have a lot of severe and near constant pain. They can spend most of the day on the toilet, going to the toilet upwards of 20 times a day, and I've never experienced those symptoms, so I do consider myself very lucky. I do most evenings have to go to the toilet maybe 2 or 3 times, which isn't that bad really, but it is different, I think, to the average person. And I do have abdominal pain quite often. I'd say that it's kind of similar if you're a woman with female reproductive parts. It feels kind of like period pain a lot of the time, so it's that kind of cramping type feeling. So I have that quite often as well. It's not as bad right now as it has been in the past, which is good, but it's intermittent. It's not, this is the thing with Crohn's disease, it's not a consistent thing. It changes all the time, and that's one of the most difficult things, or was one of the most difficult things for me to get used to, was how to plan doing things when you don't know if your Crohn's disease is going to impact you. Like a couple of times before COVID, of course, I was out having dinner and I was absolutely fine, and then while we were on the tube on the way home, my stomach went, I need to go to the toilet now, this minute, right this second, right now, or you're going to have a really embarrassing problem. And so I'd have to get off the tube and find like a hotel or something and go to the toilet. So that's not really a lot of fun. That's emotionally and mentally a little bit difficult to deal with. And when I first started experiencing Crohn's disease, I would find going out in public and needing to go to the toilet and have diarrhea really embarrassing, because I would be thinking about, you know, the people that might be able to hear me or might be able to smell what's going on, and I'd feel really embarrassed about that. And I think it's just a kind of thing that I've eventually got used to, and now I would much rather have that problem when I'm out and can go to a busy public restroom than have it happen if I'm over at a friend's house for dinner where they've just got the one bathroom that everybody has to use. So that's kind of a thing that I've learnt to view in a different way and deal with, but it is a part of Crohn's disease that maybe not very many people actually think about. And alongside those symptoms, there's also fatigue that comes along with it. So because of this inflammation, the reason you see it in the blood first is because your white blood cells have identified that something in your body is inflamed that shouldn't be, and so they think, oh well, we need to attack this because it's going to make us sick. It's not supposed to be like this. And so your body is constantly going through this process that it doesn't need to be going through, because you're not, well, you are sick, you've got Crohn's disease, but it's not something that your body can actually fight. There's nothing your body can do about it. It's just a thing that is there and that you will deal with. And so those extra processes can just make you tired. And of course, I have anxiety and depression as well, so those exacerbate my fatigue, probably even more so than the Crohn's disease, to be honest. So take that into account, but fatigue is something I deal with quite a lot with my Crohn's disease too, especially if I'm working long hours or something at work. So that's something that I personally deal with my Crohn's disease, but it doesn't affect everyone. It's quite a wide range of symptoms that you can experience. So those are kind of my symptoms and how Crohn's disease affects me and what it is and how I was diagnosed with it. As I say, mine has been fairly mild throughout. I have been hospitalised once with my Crohn's disease, which was probably a couple of years ago now. I think it was in 2018 maybe, I'm not 100% sure, I can't quite remember. But I had got up in the middle of the night, well not the middle of the night, like 12 o'clock, so kind of the middle of the night, and I had gone to the toilet. I was trying to go to the toilet and I felt desperately like I needed to use the toilet, but I couldn't go, which is a thing that happens. But that sitting on the toilet for too long caused me to have hemorrhoids, so then it was really uncomfortable to sit anywhere other than the toilet. And then I started experiencing this thing I was talking about earlier, where the food that was trying to get out couldn't get out because of this block of really hard feces in my bowels, and so it was coming out as liquid. And then I started experiencing extreme pain, and honestly I don't think I can describe it. It's the most extreme pain that I have ever experienced in my entire life. It was excruciatingly painful, and I've had really bad pain with my Crohn's disease before, but nothing like this. This was just completely off the charts. It was so painful that I was screaming and crying, and I couldn't bear to have any clothes on because just the feeling of anything touching my skin was too much for me on top of all of this pain. And then I started to bleed as well. So we called the emergency kind of, well, not quite emergency, it's a number for the NHS that you can call out of hours. And long story short, I ended up going to hospital, and it took quite a while, quite a few days. I think I was in hospital for 5 nights in total, and it took probably at least 3 days for them to figure out why I was in so much pain. And it turned out that alongside the severe constipation that was causing this liquid feces to come out of me, I also had anal fissures, which are basically teeny tiny but lots and lots of cuts inside your anus, which is painful anyway. And then add liquid poop to that situation, and I mean literally like water coming out of me. It was so bad. I can't even explain to you how bad it was. It was so painful. And the examination to figure out that I had the anal fissures, that was, oh, I can't even think about it without cringing. It was awful. But once they figured that out, they were able to give me medication for it. It was a topical cream actually, and then it went away. And if it ever came back again, I would know exactly what it was. It was that kind of 3-day period where they were trying to figure out what was going on that was really miserable. And I mean, it's not fun to be in hospital anyway, but at least we figured it out. And actually my Crohn's disease since then, funnily enough, has been much better than it was beforehand. I don't think the two things are related, it's just coincidence. But that was my only hospitalisation. So again, although that experience was not very nice, I do feel very lucky, because some people have fairly constant hospitalisations, they have to have surgeries, some people have to have colonoscopies and have colostomy bags, and some people are in near constant or constant pain, some people bleed all the time, some people can't keep food down, some people are basically living on the toilet and are unable to work, and none of that applies to me. So I feel very, very fortunate, and the purpose of this video is not for you to say, oh Sophia, poor you, that's awful. That's not the point of this at all. This is because when I first started experiencing my Crohn's disease, I felt so alone, and I felt like no one could really understand. Even my mum, who has really similar symptoms to me, just couldn't fully understand what it felt like to be me, and nobody can. This video isn't for me to be like, oh, I know how you feel. I don't. Only you know how you feel. If you have Crohn's disease, only you know how your Crohn's disease affects you physically, mentally, emotionally. Only you do. And that's okay. And it's okay to not be okay with that. And it has taken me a long time, and I'm not all the way there, to really feel, I suppose, comfortable to even make this video. I've been meaning to make it for years, and I guess now I just finally felt ready to do that. And I kind of made excuses before about why I wasn't making it, or I want more viewers, I want to make a difference, and my channel's too small. Those were excuses. It was because I wasn't ready to talk about it. And I'm not going to say that this video is easy to make. I think editing it is probably going to be pretty horrible. I feel like posting it is going to be a little bit nerve-wracking, but if even one person feels a little bit less lonely because of this video, then it's done what I wanted it to do. And I think that I felt guilty for a long time about feeling angry and upset and affected and impacted by my Crohn's disease, because it's so much better than so many other people. But frankly, that's bullshit. You can't measure your own experience and your own suffering against that of someone else, because everybody has different tolerance levels, everyone has different capacity to deal with this kind of thing, and I feel like I'm just now accepting that it's okay to think this is shit. I really hate the fact that I have Crohn's disease and that I have to deal with this, and I'm allowed to feel that way. Just because mine isn't worse doesn't make it any less shit. It's shit for anyone who has this condition or anything similar to it, and it is lonely because you can't look at me and say, oh, she has Crohn's disease. You can't tell by looking at a person if they have something else going on in their life. So yeah, I don't really think I have much of a point with this video. I just really wanted to share my experience, and if you want to talk about any of this with me, then please feel free. I'm clearly open to discussing it. I do not think that poo should be taboo. Everybody does it. So why are we not allowed to talk about it? I think we should be. And it would certainly make a lot of people feel less alone if it was less of a hush-hush kind of topic. So if you would like to talk to me about this, then either drop a comment in the comments section, or if you want to talk privately, my social media links are in the description bar. You can send me a private message on either Discord or Instagram if you want to, or send me an email if you like. And yeah, if you want to chat, then I'm open to that. Just reach out. And that's it for this one. If you liked this video and want to see more like this from me, but more likely bookish content from me, then do think about hitting that subscribe button, and I hope to see you here again soon. Thanks. Bye.